joining us, kind of having an impromptu live session here. As you see from the title, Current State of Affairs, Veteran Mental Health Check-in. Elephant in the room, there's a lot going on in the world, and we just kind of wanted to come in here and just spend a few moments with folks and just speak some positivity. It's kind of crazy out there right now, so if you're watching, tag someone. We're on YouTube, we're on Facebook. As you see below, please comment your branch of service, the years that you serve. We want to say hello, we want to honor your service, and just kind of bring your name up on screen. But also what's happening, if you see the ticker on top, there's a lot going on in the world right now. Social media is littered with a lot of triggering things. And for many, this is bringing up things that, you didn't think you'd be dealing with on a day like today. So if you are in any shape, fashion, or form feeling triggered, please use that. But Alexis, welcome. We're supposed to be going live on Saturday talking about service dogs, but given what's going on, we just said, hey, let's just go live and talk to people. Introduce yourself, say a little about yourself.
Hey everyone, my name is Alexis and I am an Army veteran. I served from 2010 to 2013. I was a 35 Mike and worked in human. Since then, I've transitioned into going to school. So I'm working on my master's in social work and hoping to be a licensed mental health therapist by the end of this year. So for now, just looking to support our community and work with veterans and really just open up some avenues of dialogue for things like today that are going on and really just pertinent to our community and probably stressing out a lot of people, right, DP?
Yes, especially with what's going on right now. It's funny. So for those that may have heard, we actually had the new app that's out there right now is Clubhouse, and it's basically blog on your phone, and you have the ability to spend some time. And it's new. Not a lot of people are there, but we literally spent 5 hours almost on the app just talking to veterans, and many were talking about kind of what the day's events have caused for them. And one thing that really stood out to me was someone said this reminds me of 9/11. And
Mm.
for those that know a little bit of my background, I was one of the first responders at 9/11 in New York City. So it's one of those things where it's just kind of like, wow, it's crazy how you start to see someone say I was in middle school, or I was in high school, or I was there, or I was forward deployed. And these events really are something that you'd see in like a Gerard Butler movie, right? Like Olympus Has Fallen or something like that. Like you'd never see this. And a full
Yeah.
disclaimer, this is two veterans coming at you. Both of us have service dogs, which is a whole conversation we're going to have here in a few days. But really, we're having a conversation just to check in with folks, just to see how you all are doing. If you're in the mastermind, please put your name in a comment or keep it anonymous, only because private groups and public groups, if we're doing a live like this, you'll see it pops up without the name. So, hey to the user that just said something. But those that are coming from the other channels, hey. Definitely. We got some giveaways, so I'm going to actually give out some of that. So I got names for Clubhouse. So we have three tickets that we'll be giving away as well. But I want to definitely just say that, again, many folks are being triggered, and it doesn't matter where you
Hmm.
fall on the political spectrum. I don't care if you're on this side or that side. We're
Hmm.
coming here as veterans, understanding that there is a mental health component that I think is being missed because of how we consume data. It's literally in your phone, it's in your text message, as a parent, and so forth. So that's kind of where what this is really about. It's just checking in and trying to put some positivity out there. Alexis, again, she's about to complete her studies and she's moving into the mental health space as a therapist. So that's where she's going to become as she wraps up her studies. But I really want to just commend you, one, for being a veteran who has chosen that path, right? A veteran who deals with your own mental health conditions, who wants to pay it forward. So we want to be able to give some tactical nuggets just to help folks out there. Because again, if just one person that we can help, I think that's really what it's all about. But yeah, it's definitely a triggering time. Like nobody really expected some of this. We might have thought about it, but before all that, where are you right now, Alexis, in the world, so we can know where you're signing in from?
I'm coming to you live from New York City.
My hometown. I love it. We got Manuel here saying hello to you from Ohio, U.S. Army retired. Hey, Manuel, appreciate you. Thank you for your service. Travis is saying Army National Guard, 08, 14, OEF Afghanistan, 2011, 91 Bravo, wheeled vehicle repair. Thank you for your service. Oh, and he did mention as well, Georgia. You may recognize this user here saying howdy. Miss Lisa is saying hello from Colorado Springs. Appreciate y'all for being here and tuning in. Um, awesome. You're not from New York originally. We talked about this, right?
No, I'm actually, I came here by way of Maine. I came here after I got out and started going to school, but I'm originally from the Portland, Maine area.
Okay. Awesome. Oh, we have here, we say, Army 20 years from MD. Thank you for your service. Thank you for being here with us. We have about 27 folks tuning in from different places, a few folks on YouTube. So, wherever you're at, definitely feel free to just comment below, tag someone so they can go ahead and see what we're doing here, reshare this into another location. But really, we want to just come here and just move energy forward. Regardless of what your belief system might be, we can agree that holding on to energy and packing feelings and things away isn't conducive. So let's just
Mm.
talk about that. Is it a common thing? Like, what would you say to someone right now, or what are your views on what's happening? Have you had, Alexis, people reach out to you who are dealing with things? Were you triggered with some of the things that were going on today?
Yeah, so I've definitely connected with some friends and especially my friends in the veteran community, and everybody is, I think everybody is feeling some type of a way, right? I definitely was triggered today throughout the course of the day and seeing the news and seeing what's going on and how it's being handled and responded to. And so the number one thing that I want to say to everyone and that we really want to emphasize at DP as well is that however you feel right now, responding to this or seeing what's going on is completely normal and is completely valid. And nobody can take that away from you. It's really important for us to understand that the way that we're feeling is, sometimes it's out of our control. And it's okay for us to just sit with those feelings and say, yeah, I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling upset. I'm feeling triggered. I'm feeling, whatever emotion that you're feeling is completely okay. And it's, completely understandable for what's going on in this climate right now.
And I think there's something powerful there that I just wanted to definitely focus on, which is being present in what's happening. And again, I'm not a licensed professional when it comes to mental health, nor do I play one on TV, but I sure as heck deal with one as the patient. But I could tell you that there's something very powerful about just accepting what's happening in yourself, being in the moment. When I go
Yeah.
to therapy, right, the biggest thing that we're working on is just being present, right? Mindfulness.
Mhm.
Look at all these things. What are we trying to achieve but to be? And I think when things like this happen, right, there's things that are triggering to us, and the default might be to just ignore or put it away or just turn this off and just do something else. And that's okay. I get that, but there's something to be said about just honoring what's happening when it comes to something like trauma. When it comes to understanding that, wait a second, I'm feeling a certain way. I'm allowing myself to feel that, but then I can begin to process and move and cope and do different things. But it's a difference between that path and journey versus just bottling it up and ignoring it and acting like it's not there because you're compounding and putting more in the bag. What do you think about that? What would you say on that, Alexis?
I mean, I think you're completely right. And I think that, just as you said, I think that there's a desire to kind of suppress what's going on and not feel those emotions. I think that we often have the instinct to kind of shelf these emotions, to table these emotions, to put them away for some, another time. Um, and to just not really deal with them. Or I think, conversely, sometimes people's, first instinct is to feel like they have to fix themselves right away, that they have to find a solution, that they have to find a way to stop feeling what they're feeling because they're uncomfortable with it. And so I think there's a lot to be said with learning to sit sometimes with the discomfort of our emotions, right? And learning how to be present with them, learning how to sit with them, and learning how to be comfortable with them in a way that we can cope and deal with them in really healthy manners, right? Because we know that in our community, many of us have coping mechanisms that might not be the most healthy, right? Or might not be the most conducive to getting to a place of wellness or getting to a place of healing. And so the first step, I think, to being able to get to that first place of healing is being able to say, okay, I'm really angry right now. So I'm going to feel that anger. That's okay. And sit with it until I'm in a place where I'm ready to move on from that. And I think that there's a lot of power in being able to harness our emotions in that way. I think there's a lot of power in being able to sit with ourselves and be present with ourselves in the way that we're feeling. and then finding ways that we can meaningfully address that, right? And so not just kind of finding a way to sit with our feelings, but then what do we do next? Where's the outlet? And so I think that that's really important as well too, is not to just sit with the feelings and ruminate on them and forever, right? Because that's also not healthy. But once we've kind of sat with them and we've habituated to a point where our anxiety levels have come down, we're not feeling as upset, maybe our heart rates have come down, maybe those feelings of anxiety have subsided a bit. That's when we can say, okay, now what? What do I want to do?
And I think that's powerful because, again, it's even this conversation right now. We literally spent I was on there for 5 hours. We had started at 4. We were gonna do an hour, and then veterans just kept coming, and it just kept
Yeah.
saying this is the only place where something positive is happening. Right? Other
Yeah.
channels are talking about all kinds of things, and some are going to start taking political views and all these different things. And it's like, remove all that noise and let's just focus on the
Hmm.
person for a second and just create a space that we can be in to at least be positive and at least just kind of have that comfort.
Yeah.
And it would be a disservice to not turn around and say, hey, can you guys do a live? Yep, let's go right to it. Let's go ahead and talk to folks because I know that if you felt triggered and I felt triggered and many people that we have, I'm looking at my phone,
Hmm.
people are texting, people are reaching out, folks are dealing with things. One of the correspondents on a outlet, I've heard a few of them say that this reminds me of my time in Iraq. Right, some of these
Hmm.
correspondents are veterans, so they're literally having kind of these images coming back to them of things they may have been exposed to, and it's just like yesterday you're thinking about 9/11 or other things that you may have been around, or operations overseas and forward operating areas and so forth. That doesn't have a time limit. And I think that's something that I just wanted to kind of touch on because you could be a Vietnam veteran, and these things can trigger things that have been dormant or suppressed for a long time. And you start to wonder what's happening inside of me. And it's literally one of those things where there's no time limit on how trauma operates in the body if that energy isn't moved. What would you say about that, Alexis?
I think that that's such an important point, right? Because I think that, what we're seeing today is something that we have not ever seen before in our history. And so maybe some of us are feeling surprised by the way we're reacting and the way that we're responding to it, right? Many of us may not have, we didn't see today coming, and we didn't know how we'd feel if we ever saw something like this happen. And so I think that, yes, absolutely, there's a lot of power in that. And I think it's really important to be able to. Um, really sit with and think about how we want to move forward from these feelings of stress and feelings of trauma. But yeah, I think today is absolutely unprecedented. I think that many people might be surprised about how they're feeling. I think that the number, one of the really important things that I can say and that I've saw today in the room that we were in is to seek community, because I have a feeling that more people uh, are feeling something than you think. To be honest, I was really surprised by the way that I felt, but I felt so relieved to see that my other veteran peers and my friends were also, just as strongly reacting as I was, and felt just as much of a visceral reaction as I do. And so seek that community and hear what your battle buddies are saying, and hear them out because, number one, we need that support from one another. We need that community from one another. But two, I think it's really important for us to create spaces where there's some mutual understanding. And I think that, the important part of, things like this and having these types of lives and these types of talks is that it's really catered to us and for us. I think it's important for us to be seeking community with other people who understand what we're coming from. To understand what those experiences in Iraq and Afghanistan were like, who understand why seeing what we're seeing on TV makes us feel the way that we feel. And then, like I said, find that outlet. So whether that's continuing to talk in community, whether that's, playing basketball, whether that's doing yoga, whether that's, whatever it may be, listening to music, going for a run. Don't just continue to sit with these feelings and then have keep them pent up. I think that that's another way for us to see some really adverse reactions and responses. That's another way for us to store trauma, right? Let's not just sit with what's happening today and let it upset us and let it fuel some of the fire for the things that are going on within us. Because for many of us, we can become re-traumatized, and I think it's really important for us to not enable that. Those types of negative experiences to come and take another hold on us as we try to work through our recovery.
And I think that's That's a good point there we talked about. So we're looking at taking, holding space for those that may not know they need space.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's interesting here is boundaries. We talked about this a little bit today,
Yes.
which is, as a first responder, as a veteran, as a mental health professional, there are
Hmm.
boundaries. And what I mean by boundaries is that honoring the fact that maybe right now, John, right, needs some space. He's not ready maybe to get all the love I want to give him, right? Like John, come on, get out of that space that you're in, knock the funk out. We can do this, and really just knowing that John just maybe needs me to sit with him right now, and
Yes.
maybe tomorrow he's gonna say, okay, DP, now let's talk about what did you do for therapy. That's not tomorrow. That's not today. Maybe that's tomorrow. But holding space and really just sitting with someone and understanding to respect that person's boundary. But many of us that may be in a place where we feel now compelled to help and reach out to others, you also need boundaries. And by that I mean that I have to understand that I have to know how much to give and then be able to reset because of the fact
Mhm.
that you're pouring out of yourself, but you can't give what you don't have. So when these things are happening, there's one key piece that you mentioned, which is we didn't know how we would react to this. And I think that's very powerful because we're trained to deal with certain stressors and traumas. We might go
That's
in,
right.
we're trained to not cringe too much, let's say, by pulling a trigger because we have reps and whatnot. But what
Right.
happened today, it's not something that people are just trained to see or do in real life. So when you're seeing this, your body does not have a reference point, right? So there are things that may trigger us that kind of go back to crap when this thing happened, whereas this almost shoots neurons and your brain in places where you're like it's triggering different things, but there's nothing it's attaching to because it's a brand new trauma to a degree to
That's
many.
right.
And I think that there's something to be said about how you process trauma almost in a way as a veteran, because many of us live in a state of being triggered by past events, but now
That's
having
right.
to deal with a new event. So this new event, for some, may trigger some past things, but it's attacking other things inside where it's like this is a different type of trigger, and that's why we're seeing the hyper responsiveness and hyper connectivity going on. And we have to be very good stewards, I guess, of how we communicate and reach out and hold the line for each other, because we can also end up having a trauma bond, right? Of like, Alexis, this is
Yeah.
ridiculous. We can't do this. John, we have to do. You can start getting
That's
yourself so
right.
riled up
That's
where
right.
that's not helping you.
And we find ourselves oftentimes working each other up. I know that, me and my friends and I, we often get into that, this is so messed up and this happened and then this and then, oh yeah, and then that. And then I agree, we find ourselves working, and not intentionally, of course, by any means, but we do find each other, find ourselves kind of feeding those, fueling the flames, I guess you could say, um, unintentionally. And so I think that that's, very important to address. And I think another thing to remember in terms of supporting, supporting somebody who may be feeling triggered or maybe going through something is to, just as you said earlier, follow their lead. If they're looking for the space right now, give them that space. If they're looking to talk, give them the space to talk. If they're looking to seek out other resources like a professional therapist or a counselor, help them with that and be willing to help them with that, whether that's getting on Google with them, whether that's calling the office or the provider with them, or offering them a ride to their first appointment, right? Just making sure that they get there. For some of us, I think that's really, really hard, not only getting connected to services, but actually following through and receiving those services. And so those are ways that we can be supportive of each other and of ourselves. And I think you make a really important point, DP, is that not to allow this to be a new traumatic event for us. And the ways that we can do that is by meaningfully address it now, today as it's happening. You know what I mean? Like I said, find support, seek out that community, and find an outlet so that this is not something that we're holding up and storing, because this is going to be a conversation over the next several days. This is, we're on day one of a crazy news cycle here. And we're going to continue to see some things and likely hear some things that are going to be deeply upsetting to us and probably gravely offensive to many of us, right? And so I think it's important that while we're in the beginning of this, as best we can, we get ahead of it. And while we do things like this, we have these lives, we talk to one another, we get on Clubhouse or Facebook or YouTube, Instagram, these text messages, whatever it takes for us to be with one another. Because let's be honest, many of us are struggling with PTSD and PTSD is a disease of isolation, right? PTSD makes us want to be on our own, to not seek out help, to not talk to anybody else about what's going on within us. And so I think it's really important that we don't allow what's going on today to exacerbate, our symptoms of what's already going on.
So what would you say for someone right now who's just kind of like, my chest is tight, my breath is out of control, I can't catch it, I just, I'm frazzled, right? I may
Right.
go pop something or I may not do that. What are some things you would say to someone right now who may be in a place where they're just kind of all over the place emotionally and psychologically, as far as a quick, like, just, hey, if you hear my voice right now, just what would you say to that person who's looking?
Number one, if you can hear my voice right now, take a deep breath, right? Grab a seat if you're able to. Let's first of all, let's turn off the news. If that's what's on, if the news is on, if that's what's watching you, if that's what's triggering you, let's remove ourselves from that situation. Let's remove that stimuli from ourselves. Let's grab a seat, take a deep breath, right? And really try to just focus on where we are, focus on the things that we can hear, focus on the things that we can see, the things that we can touch, the things that we can smell, right? The things that we can taste, right? And really try to ground ourselves and center ourselves. Let's be mindful and be aware that we are okay right now. We're safe where we are. We're doing all right. We're safe. We're loved. Okay. And that we're going to be okay and that we're going to get through this. But definitely let's do some deep breathing exercises. Let's ground ourselves. Let's get our heart rate down. Okay. And let's make sure that we're at a place of, homeostasis as best that we can. And it's really important to remember that it's okay to remove whatever is that stress or that stimuli from us. And it doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you soft. It doesn't make you any of those things to say, hey, you know what? I'm at my limit. I'm reaching my limit. And now it's time for me to remove myself or remove this stimuli, from my attention. And that's completely okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
And I think that's key. So again, if you're hearing us, whether it's on this live or on a replay, there's another part too that I would add to that, Alexis, which is this is not only something that's going to take the attention now. This is history. Think about it. When in your lifetime do things happen? September 10th, many of us went to sleep, and September 11th will always live in infamy as what happened that day. And this is
Right.
one of those instances that will be talked about going forward. This is something of remember that time that this happened on the Capitol and so forth. So this is one of those things that not only is it triggering today, but for many, it becomes part of now the conversation of our lives to a degree, right?
Yeah.
A reference point, something that becomes part of our lexicon of internal turmoil. And for many veterans, they might be getting triggered in different ways. So I want to offer a different perspective. Some of you out there might feel rage from the veteran position of the world is seeing us this way. And when you have
Very.
pride in your service and your country and the flag, and you see that someone can see you in a state, like think about it, right? You don't want to be perceived as weak. And for many, that feeling of this is the world stage being looking at us at this point of this happening because of a few, right? That for many in of itself can be a trigger where you go from patriotism or feeling that righteous anger of like this should not be how we're perceived by the world, yet it's our reality. That still is taxing your system, and there's something to be said for the fact of understanding that being triggered or just having that energy at the end of the day, we have to learn how to be able to move that, right, and release some of that to be able to move forward, because many veterans right now hearing us and seeing us, you may be dealing with other conditions that this may exacerbate. You have high blood pressure, you have diabetes, you have fill in the blank, and these things for many can give you a stroke. This can give people heart attacks. Like these things are real. So I think it's powerful. Just catching just the breath, just breathe, just really just sit. There's something I want you to kind of touch on again, Alexis, if you can, which is the tactile piece. We talked a little bit about this in the clubhouse, and we had a lady named Maria who talked about she's a sculptor, and she uses therapy by sculpting and using her hands. And some of us find our way sometimes when we're kind of stressed, we'll start fidgeting or we'll try to do something. So your body's trying to find somewhere to disperse that energy, right? So for some, right, it becomes this, right, on the table. And if you think about it, what is happening, right? It's energy that's trying to go somewhere, right? If it's not a pencil, it might be your leg. or your feet
That's right.
tapping. So there's something happening, or your teeth are grinding. The point is
Hmm.
that's energy that has to be released. So I think it's powerful to just address the breath from the point of just kind of sitting, finding something that's different outside of yourself, right? Like, find something to do, right? Literally cook something, bake something, use your hands, find something that you can focus on that just kind of takes you away for a second to kind of reset, because it's hard to breathe if you're looking at that constant stressor, right? So definitely taking a break from the information overload, putting the phone down, take a shower, do something to just kind of reset. I think it's huge that you mentioned. Can you touch a little bit about that, as far as what kind of happens when someone begins to use, their hands, or does something to kind of shift that attention or that energy?
Right. So what you're trying to do is, and I think the point you were just making is that some of those kind of coping mechanisms and things that we're doing, the tapping, the leg shaking, um, these kind of external expressions of energy, right? Uh, Oftentimes we're unaware that we're doing that. I'm a huge leg shaker myself when I'm anxious or when I'm nervous, and I'm definitely not aware that I'm doing it. But I will shake a table down. You know what I mean? It's crazy. So part of where taking these deep breaths come from, or part of where finding something to, hold on to, and I'll show you. This is my AirPod case. I've got a fuzzy little ball here at the end, and I find myself often mindlessly, just playing with this and manipulating this, because it gives you something to focus on, right? So I can focus on the feeling, the sensation of the softness. I can focus on the hardness of the metal, the coldness of the metal. I can focus on the texture of the rubber. And that gives me something to really hone in on and be aware of, and to not only take your mind off of what's going on, right? But to help create an awareness of myself and how my body is feeling, so that I can kind of be mindful of how I'm feeling and also center myself a bit more, right? So whether that's I need to take a deep breath, whether that's I need to use a stress ball, I need to fidget, it gives you that ability for for your nervous system to kind of say, all right, I'm not in fight or flight. I'm focused on this texture here. I'm safe. I'm not under threat. I'm okay. And it gives you a moment for your heart rate to come down, for you to take a moment to take a breath, catch your breath, and kind of calm down from the adrenaline that you're feeling as a result of the anxiety, or whatever your triggers are. And so I think that that's where that's really coming from, right? And gives us a way for us to feel a bit more in control of our bodies. And I think that that's a huge thing for us, is that many of us, we don't feel in control of our emotions, we don't feel in control of our bodies in many instances. And so that really gives us the power to feel in control, be able to feel like we are doing something to address the way we're feeling meaningfully right there. We don't have to wait for anything to, you don't have to wait for a pill to kick in. You don't have to wait for your yoga video to load, right? You can just sit there and immediately be mindful of how you're feeling, and hopefully kind of control and mitigate some of those negative symptoms that you're feeling.
One comment that came in from Facebook, and again, because of the nature, I'll pop stuff up, but some comments are a little personal. I just read them. And M says, "I'll be honest. I've been dealing with PTSD for 15 years and seeing mental health doctors. I just feel like this is the way I am, and taking meds, talking to doctors, and nothing helps."
Yeah, that's that's a really, really, really tough feeling, right? That feeling of almost of hopelessness, of feeling like we're not going to, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And what I would say is that mental health is very difficult because it's an invisible illness, and because it's not, we always use the analogy. It's not like a broken arm. It's not something that we can, tangible, that we can see and that we can touch. And so the number one thing that I say is that if as best we can, is to be persistent, right? To try, there's different modalities out there, to try new things. I never, ever, ever thought that a dog was going to make me not want to kill myself. I'll be very honest with you. Didn't have any capacity for understanding of how that would help me, right? And that's not to say that that's for everyone, but that's something that I almost didn't even consider trying, right? I had ruled it out. I didn't think that it was going to be for me. I didn't think that having a dog, as somebody who had a pet before, not a service animal, but I had a pet before. I didn't see it. And so I think what the biggest disservice we can do for ourselves is to give up and to not keep trying to find what works for us, because I think that there is something out there for everyone. I think that it's difficult to find sometimes, whether it's equine therapy, right? We keep coming back to yoga. For some people, it's a really long time, and it's a struggle to get on the right kind of cocktail of medications and to find what fits for you. Sometimes it's getting the right medications and the right therapist, the right talk therapist, and the right external stuff, like doing, equine therapy or going on wounded warrior retreats or whatever the case may be. And so I think when I hear things like that, uh, I'm reminded of the times that I've felt like that. I'm reminded of the times that I've had my friends come to me and they're feeling like that. And so my advice to you is to hold on, hang in there, and to give as many different things a shot as you can, because we're not limited just to medication and talk therapy. Those are not the only two things that can help us. There's other things out there that can help us mitigate our disabilities and mitigate the symptoms that we're feeling, and really help us move towards a better sense of health and wellness. And so, yeah, that's what I would say.
And I think that's powerful, because to add another, just a layman's perspective, there are so many advancements that have happened in the last 5, 3, 2, 1 year. New studies on CBD, for example, for other cannabis, for
That's
other
right.
psychedelics, for others, ayahuasca. We talked about that today. Equine therapy, service dogs. Let's not negate also for many, it might be a religious path that becomes
That's
maybe
right.
their journey there. So I would say, that really, to kind of put more examples in there, which is all I did. It's trying different things, because sadly we can get on the regiment of, I'm just going to take the cocktail of what I'm giving and I'm going to go through the motions. And the reality is that maybe a retreat might help. Maybe talking to, Alexis or myself about what our service dogs have done for us. That's the live we're going to do on Saturday. But, just to that same point, right? What has that added, right, to my therapy journey, right? I see a therapist. I have a service dog. He's trained specifically to work with me and to be able to help me live my life, right, and mitigate and kind of help me with my disabilities. That's an option. Again, not for everyone. So part of what the conversation we're going to have on Saturday, it's really what you don't see, right? For example, as a veteran, as a man who is married with 3 children, and as a veteran who's a woman who has no children, or kids, or married. So really understanding that, right, and how we look being minorities in the world and how we are perceived and so forth. So there's a lot of things that we never saw out there that we want to be able to at least share our stories about. But from the point of view, M, to your question, that I think it's really just trying different things. Just don't stop, because I'm telling you, Alexis, I don't know how long it took you to get to the place where you got your service dog, but how long were you dealing with pain and just trying things, and had you maybe not pushed another year or what have you, right? Now you look back saying, I'm glad I kind of kept pushing and trying and asked that question, and that aha
Yeah.
moment led to where I'm at now.
Yeah, I think what a great point you're making. It took me a long time and a lot. It took me to, getting to one of my darkest times and one of my darkest places to even being open to thinking about getting a service dog, right? It was a couple years. It took me a couple years before I even would complete the application. That was a discussion for us. So it had come up in my family, that perhaps I should think about getting a service dog. And it took me close to just shy of 2 years between the time that conversation was initiated and the time that I had the courage just to complete the application, right? Um, and so let's
But let's not. But let me just stop you there, because I want to ask you, in that 2 year period, that hesitation, for many, they may be able to relate to it, right? For someone, it may be this becomes real. Because I'll
That's right.
tell you, as someone who may not want attention, contrary to us going live, when you
Yeah.
have a service dog, guess what? You stand out. Like, one of the things I always say is, I'm nowhere near the person I used to be, but when I go to a gym, never in my life was I the center of attention. Wasn't the tallest, wasn't the strongest, wasn't the biggest. I tell you what, I go to the gym now, everybody knows who I am. I might as well be
Right.
the Incredible Hulk when I walk in there because they see me and plus one. And that literally is a game changer for many. So for some, even that reality of it becomes real now, right? I think it's another part when it comes to that.
I think that that's a huge and something that's really important to think about is, um, especially with invisible illness, what it means to now have a physical manifestation of that, and to the way I describe it is, I felt like I was advertising that I had a disability when I walked around with this dog, and so I think that it's really important to talk about how we come to make these decisions and why. And in that 2-year time frame, the deciding factor, what changed for me was that I really didn't want to live anymore, and I was at my rock bottom in terms of my depression, and the depressive episode that I was in, and the symptoms of my PTSD, and the way that my anxiety was manifesting. Um, I got to a place where I felt like, and I hadn't yet, but I felt like I had tried everything. I felt like I had exhausted all of my resources, and that I didn't know what else to do. And so it came from really a place of desperation, right? A place of not knowing what else to do, not knowing how to fix myself, feeling hopeless, feeling like the medication wasn't working, feeling like talk therapy isn't working, um, and really being like, this is a Hail Mary, right? So if this doesn't work, um, we'll see where I'm at in a little bit of time. And so I think it's really important for us to acknowledge the journey and arriving at making these decisions is really powerful. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of strength. Um, and it's okay when you kind of vacillate between, do I want to or do I not want to? The most important thing is that you don't give up. Hang in there. Do not give up. Keep fighting, because there are so many different things out there for you to try, and you just don't know what the right combination is for you yet.
No, and thank you for sharing that because I think it's a powerful point that I think having these conversations, hopefully, it gives someone the language to express things because I think that's probably one of the things that we were able to speak about the other day was as a veteran, right? What resources do I have out there to understand what even our journeys look like, right? As a woman who's been deployed and dealt with things, right? Where do you go for information, right? Where do you go to kind of at least see
Mhm.
someone who may be a little further ahead? And if someone doesn't have the language to ask for something, it took you 2 years to develop the ability or language to do that, to take that step, or to say or ask for this
Mhm.
thing. And if someone else can, be helped by giving them that information now and being able to hear this conversation, that can speed up someone's journey so they don't have to wait 2 more years maybe, or they don't have to wait 15 years like M just shared, because there are modalities and different varieties of care available for mental health. So it's conversations like this that begin to spread awareness, right? When everybody says, well, what are we doing? We're here. We're talking, we're sharing. Take this video, share it, tag someone. Let's continue the conversation because we break the stigma this way. And one thing you said was great is it's okay. It doesn't make you weak because of what's happening. It's being aware of what's happening inside of you.
Yeah, and I would even argue that making these decisions to seek out these avenues for help are some of the hardest things that many of us have ever done. I think that we undervalue the amount of strength and courage that it really takes for us to seek out the help that many of us need in whatever capacity that may be. Um, and there's a lot of power in being able to do that for yourself, because at some point you'll turn the corner and you'll be able to look back and be like, man, I cannot believe I got myself out of that, right?
Hmm.
Because no matter what you do, whether you get a service dog, whether you do equine therapy, whether you do get a talk therapist, or whether you take medication, right? You're able to pull yourself out of it. It's you in combination with these modalities and with these tools, but it is us, and we are able to do it. We do have that potential. We can harness it, despite how we're feeling. Despite being depressed, despite being maybe suicidal, despite some of us with self-harm behaviors, despite some of our self-sabotaging behaviors, we do have an ability to overcome it. And I think sometimes it just takes that one decision on that one day, to do something. And the thing is, too, is something I like to tell people is you don't always have to feel the same way. You just have to capitalize on that one day where you feel okay enough to reach out for help. So if you're able to make that call to reach out to that therapist, to schedule that appointment, to go to that horse ranch, to make your massage therapy appointment, to, I don't know, call the chiropractor, you can, as soon as you hang up the phone, you cannot want to go. You do not want to have to go. You don't have to enjoy it. You don't have to, like it. But all you have to do is promise yourself to keep that commitment, right?
Mm,
I know this is the help that I need. I know that this will be beneficial to me. I know that I will feel better after.
hmm.
And just make that promise to yourself and keep that. And you can feel however you want to feel outside of that, right? As long as you keep that one promise to yourself, that one commitment to yourself, that you're able to take that step, right? And the flip side of that is, what happens when we let ourselves down? What happens when we don't keep that promise? When we cancel that appointment, when we no call, no show on our therapist, when we don't show up to our
Whoa,
friends,
whoa! I've never done that. I've never done that. Not show up
right?
to therapy now. What are you talking about?
Right. So what happens when we do that, right? Is that when we continue to buy into that kind of negative self-talk of like, well, you fucked up and there's no turning back, or now your therapist hates you because you didn't show up and you didn't call them to let them know you weren't coming. I think it's really important, right, that we don't get caught up in that kind of negative self-talk, and that we don't get caught up in those traps that sometimes we set for ourselves in our mental illness. We're going to fall. We're going to stumble. We're not always going to be hua hua about getting better and getting help. I'm not always this like, cheery and
Hmm.
enthusiastic when it comes to my own, personal mental health and working on that. But I think it's, so important to acknowledge that it's not always a smooth ride. It sucks and it hurts and it's rough. And again, you can feel those feelings and they are
Hmm.
valid. Just don't stay in them for too long.
And I think that, so. I would say those that are watching right now, whether you're watching it live or you watch the replay, uh, give a thumbs up in the comment section if you've ever missed a therapy appointment. Because the reality is, it happens more than we think. And as you guys kind of give that thumbs up to saying whether or not you actually missed a mental health appointment, one thing I would say is my therapist has never been mad. It's literally been one of those things of, okay, so what's happened since the last time we spoke? And it just continues. And it's almost like one of those things where the relationship that you need to have with your therapist needs to be able to have that
Okay.
conversation. Where today, it just wasn't a good day. And what happened last session? It just wasn't happening. And the reality is that's your truth, and being able to move from that into, picking up where you kind of left off, because it's a relationship. It's something that you're moving forward. Got a few thumbs up here. Got Jay, he was in the room with us earlier, giving us a thumbs up. You remember Al, he also gave us a thumbs up as well. So he's saying facts to that as well. He feels that pain and understands, right? So the reality
Right.
is this, future therapist, Alexis, if I don't make it to therapy, are you going
Right.
to throw a brick at me when I come back the next
Never,
week or following week?
never. And that's the thing. If you're with the right therapist, if you're with the person who is a great fit for you, if you're with somebody who understands trauma, who understands PTSD, who understands military culture, they're never going to be mad at you. They're not going to hold it against you. You're not in trouble. You don't get additional homework. There's no detention. Your therapist should be there and be understanding that sometimes we just don't have it in us. And sometimes it's more than what we can handle. The most important thing, right, is go. That's my service dog. The most important thing, right, is making sure that we go back and not letting that one time that we didn't go or that we missed our appointment or the 2 weeks. That's right. Negative self-talk is my kryptonite. I feel you on that. Those 2 weeks or those 3 weeks or however long that you missed of therapy, it's never too long. It's never too late to go back. I can speak personally. While I was working on my undergraduate degree and I was in therapy, I was a real a frequent flyer on the no call no show to my therapy appointments, right? Real, towing the line of maybe not being the best client,
Hmm.
and really needing some additional support. And every time I went back, my therapist was the most supportive, most encouraging person ever. I never once felt shamed. I never felt judged, and I never felt unwanted or unwelcome. And so you shouldn't be feeling those things either. We should be, hopefully facilitating relationships with therapists where we feel like we're heard, and we're understood. And I think I just saw somebody say, keep trying, right? What was that DP that they just
Yep.
posted? Keep trying until the miracle happens and then try some more. Exactly, Travis. I couldn't agree more. You've got to keep that fight in you. And I know, listen, if there's anything that we all have in common, if you're watching this live, if you're tuned in, we all have this fight, right? We're all hanging in there, this desire to live, this will to live. We've all got it. And we've got to kind of harness that, hold on to it, and keep going, keep trying. And if you find that your therapist is taking punitive action, or isn't really understanding of where you're coming from, then maybe it's time for us to start looking at some directories and shopping around for other therapists. It was said in the room today, DP, actually, you said it today.
I
You can
did.
fire your therapist. You can absolutely fire and rehire a new therapist. Do not feel like, and this was also said earlier, if you find that you're with a therapeutic, if you find that you're with a therapist and there is no therapeutic relationship, then you're wasting your time, right? If DP is my therapist and I don't feel comfortable telling him what I've been through or how I feel, or that I was suicidal last week, or
Bye
I
bye.
engaged in self-harm, what's the point? We're not going to be able to meaningfully address anything. You're not going to be able to meaningfully address your problems if you're not able to be open with them. I think that, it's important to know that you can have therapists for different things. You can work on different things at different times. You don't have to go to therapy tomorrow and work on your PTSD, your anxiety, your depression, your bipolar disorder, and, your childhood trauma. You don't have, that's not, you don't do all 5 things at once. That's not how it works. And so somebody's fired a bunch. Exactly. Keep it moving and keep trying and keep going back, because when you find the right therapist for you, I've been privileged enough to find the right therapist for me before, and I've had to get another therapist again, right? And I've had to keep trying, right? Because I've had the right therapist, and the right therapist moved away or got a new job or whatever the case might be, and I had to keep trying. So we've got to be resilient, and we've got to be persistent, right? And we have to keep fighting for what we need and what we deserve.
And I think there's also power in accountability, right? Like
That's right.
even this right here. So for those that may be asking, and I'll record something separate to this. But one thing that I think is powerful about the Clubhouse app, it's that there is no video. This is voice. It's an AirPod or headset, and you're doing whatever you're doing in the house. You can walk your dog, you can cook, do laundry, and you're just listening. You're just in the room. And because there's no video, there's no awkwardness of like someone seeing me on a Zoom session right now, or I have to make sure that I'm here and I'm presentable and whatever. It's literally just come as you are. And I think there's something powerful about just that kind of like pseudo anonymity to be in that space. So I share that to say that one of the things that we want to do is really encourage people, if they show up, it's come back to the next one. And some might see it of why would you hold a room over and over and have different topics, or why would we do this? And it's about accountability to a degree, because it's easy to say, for example, Jay, I popped him up. Me and him have known each other for over 20 years, deployed together, served together, children's godparent, all that. But the reality is, I have the ability to reach out to him and vice versa, and we have an accountability that we can create. But some people don't have that, because the reality is, right, the day is going to come where I may no longer be here and Jay is, or vice
Right.
versa. And for many of you, that person is no longer there. So
Hmm.
I would offer to you that if you don't have that, then jump in the comment section and be here. If it's on a Clubhouse app and you're listening to us, or one of these sessions that we're doing, I want to see you again. Say, hey, I'm back again. We have veterans just say, hey, it's here. Just another jarhead coming from California. And it's like, hey, thanks for being here. Thanks for popping in. Because if nothing else, we have to be able to hold that space for each other and hold the line. So if you don't have someone to have that accountability to reach out and say, hey, DP, how are you holding up? Because I'm in a stage of my life where those things are no longer around me because of age, tragedy, or just life. This can become part of that community. This is what technology affords us. That right now we have the ability to reach out and touch people live, but even if you come in and see it in a replay, we're still in the comment section replying back and just encouraging and trying to create that positivity and saying, hey, when you see us again, come on back. And we can create that opportunity to have these conversations because that's what's not happening. So even if it's just, hey, because I know for a fact there's someone right now who is sitting in a single bedroom or a little condo or a room and they're by themselves.
That's right.
You have nothing going on. And when we do our Friday, we used to do our Friday. We One of the shows that we used to host last year, and we're continuing to host, is a Friday Night Live. And we come into the Friday Night Live, and it's literally just saying, "Come on in." There's no agenda, and as soon as you come in, if you know anything about what we're doing, we kind of kick it off this way. So we start off. Just another sunny day in Southern California. Whatever it might be, find something positive. For some, it's music. For some, it's tuning in and just seeing you jam with us or do something. It doesn't matter what it might be, but find something, hold on to it. So if you're by yourself right now, you're here. Don't let this whole thing about technology not being real deter you, right? There was a time when we didn't have the means to mail things, and then mails became something. Now we have phones, we have FaceTime, text messages. Check on your strong friends, check on your weak friends, check on your friends, check on someone, ask a question, and actually stay there. Because I tell you, there's something different about saying, "How are you doing?" and just staying there versus, "How are you doing?" and off you go. Because we all do that, right? You ask a question, then you leave. But do you ask the question and stay? No, seriously. So what did you do this weekend? Oh, the usual. What's the usual? Where'd you go? Like literally, sometimes some folks need like little jolt of like, wait a second, you care? Because I'm not gonna tell you that I just had an incident at Walmart. Someone cut me off and I had a moment. I had to pull over. I was shaking. I was having a moment. And the fact of the matter is, I want to be able to release that, but I'm not gonna sit there and talk with you about that if you're just gonna keep moving. But if you stay there and you say, DP, so how's the weekend? How are you doing? The usual. Well, what did you do? Like, tell me. Like, what did you do this weekend? And that might be enough for someone to say, well, if I'm being honest, there it is. That human connection of asking a question beyond just the, okay, good to go, same here, and off you go. Because we're so busy living life. So I would encourage you to just own that for a second. What would you say about that, Alexis?
Yeah, I think that I agree with everything that you're saying. I think that the accountability factor is a great factor, and for us to hold that space for one another, accountability and consistency creates clarity. Absolutely, Al. Couldn't agree more. That, and that's what we're trying to provide, right? Providing that consistency for one another to have that sense of community, I think is huge. Even if it's just to listen, you don't necessarily have to chime in. You don't have to say anything. I guarantee you somebody on the call is going to say something that's representative of your thoughts or your feelings, right? Because there's a lot of different opinions and a lot of different thoughts and feelings. But being there for one another, I think, is so important because I think that, we're a really special community that, nobody else really understands what we've been through. They don't understand our experiences. They don't understand, the way we feel and the way we move in the world today as we do, after transitioning back. And so it's huge to have that accountability with one another and to hold each other accountable to make sure that we're okay and doing all right, but that we're taking care of ourselves too, right? And part of being accountable to each other is to make sure that we're holding each other accountable for doing the things that we're supposed to do. Hey, DP, did you make your therapy appointment last week? Hey, DP, did you call your therapist to follow up with your medication, or excuse me, call your doctor to follow up about your medication? Hey, DP, did you call and check on your MRI results? I mean, for so many of us, we're not doing things and we neglect ourselves because we don't want to engage in the systems of care that we have to. We don't want to engage in calling the VA. We don't want to deal with, some of us don't want to deal with getting online and trying to figure out my healthy vet or whatever the case may be. And so sometimes we just need somebody to say, hey, listen, I know you don't want to do it and I know it sucks, but you've really got to make that appointment. You've really got to get to that MRI. You really need to get back on your tramadol for your pain, whatever the case may be. And it's you're not going to have that if you're not with people who don't understand what you're going through and who don't care about you and support you. And I think the number one thing about the veteran space that I've found is that it's an instant, brotherhood and sisterhood. We're coming together. I mean, DP and I don't think we've known each other for a week.
No.
And we've
We met each
already
other on Clubhouse. less than 5 days ago.
Less than 5 days. This is actually DP and I's second time meeting each other face to face, if you will. And so there's a ton of power in that. And DP has made himself accessible to me, not just as a veteran, but as a friend, as somebody who can reach out to him for advice in terms of business or in terms of personal development or professional development. And that's the kind of network that's going on, right? That's the type of community that's going on. And so I know that DP is somebody that if I'm having a bad day or I'm not in a good place, I know I can reach out to him and hey, maybe we don't have to talk about how I'm feeling. That's the other thing. We don't always have to talk about how we're feeling. Sometimes it is enough just to reach out and be in community, or reach out and listen to what's going on Clubhouse, or listen to these lives on Facebook or on YouTube. Stay connected because we care. We're here because we care. We're talking, we're having these conversations because we care. We think that they're important. We know that they matter. And we just want to be as inclusive as possible. We want to have as many people tap into what we're doing as possible, because I think this community is a really special one. And it's one that I'm very proud to be part of. I'm really, really proud to be a veteran because of the way that other veterans treat other veterans, right? We look out for each other. Oftentimes when it comes to the VA, disability claims, education benefits, it's the private news network almost, right? Where do you get the most of your information? It's from other veterans. Typically, it is not your TAP process. Typically, it is not at the VA. All of the benefits that I'm entitled to, or ways to get more benefits, or ways to get additional help, or ways to get this or that or the third, all of this information has come to me from other veterans. And so I think that if for no other reason, if not for emotional or mental support, tap into that network, because the benefits out there are benefits for us. And there's veterans out here who want to educate you on how to get them.
Definitely, I think that's powerful. There's nothing else I can add to that, but amen. I think that's what this is all about. Again, we're not really, answering too many questions. More so, just trying to at least put out positivity. So as we start to wrap up here, just one, thank you for being in the space with us. If you're listening live or you're watching on a replay, tactical things: detach for a second, breathe. Center yourself, be in the moment, and if anything else, allow yourself to feel what you are feeling and then begin to move. Because you do no honor or service to yourself by trying to ignore what's happening, because that energy remains there. You have to a degree, almost kind of let that energy go, whether that be manifesting itself inside of you via anxiety or depression or any other forms of things that you may be dealing with. Just breathe. Like Alexis said, breathe. Be in the moment, sit down, turn off the news outlet for a second, take a shower, just kind of take a moment for yourself, because we're so busy on the move that we don't just take a moment to just kind of reset. So I think there's definitely power in that. So thank you, Alexis, for sharing those points with us. In closing, what would you say and put out there to the universe for those that may be watching us on a replay or maybe listening to us live right now?
I guess what I want to leave you with is, I've said it before, I'll say it again: find that support, seek that community, find an outlet, take care of yourself meaningfully, right? So don't just pay lip service to self-care and say that you're doing things because it's self-care. Really do things that take care of you and nurture you and contribute to your wellness. And above all, manage your stress, right? Stress is the root cause of so many of our issues. It's the root cause of many of our physical manifestations of our health issues. Certainly the root cause of many of our mental health issues, right? So manage your stress, be mindful of yourself, be in tune with your body, be mindful of how you're feeling. And then when you're not okay, tap in, connect. We're here.
Definitely. Thank you for being with us. Check on each other, right? Reach out, send a text, and actually follow up with the question. And really just be there, right? Honor that space wherever it might be, whether it's just one-to-one or in a group of however it may be. So get a group chat together, round up the fellas or the gals, and just reach out and say, hey, it's been a while, we haven't talked. Just checking in. How's everybody doing? That's what this is. It's basically the current state of affairs, veterans mental health check-in. We're just popping up, checking in, seeing how you guys are doing. and hopefully giving you the ability to just kind of focus on something different. If you are dealing with any triggers, the website, you see it scrolling, 800-273-8255. Press 1 for the crisis hotline. Please don't feel any way that if you were to call that, that means in any shape, fashion, or form that takes away from who you are as a person. It's okay to tap out and take a break and get some support, right? We do it in the military, right? In the Army, right? We yell, they shell. At the end of the day, that's how it works, right? If you need reinforcements, you call it, right? You need air support, you call it. You need naval power, you call it. You need power from above, you call it. So in this instance, it's the same thing. There's nothing wrong with calling for support. That's what it is. So please remove the stigma of the crisis hotline tapping out or saying you're weak. No, it's calling for support.
Yeah.
It's no different than when you were calling for artillery to come in and do their thing or air support. So why would it be any different now? The website, the number are listed. We'll be back again soon, but check on each other, take care of each other. Again, comment below your branch of service, the years you were in, and thank you for being with us.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it, and a great conversation, super meaningful and very important to have. So I appreciate you being in conversation with me.
Thank you. Thank you for holding the space for our veterans and our brothers and sisters out there. So we'll mute ourselves, pull up some of the comments that came up as we close out with our unofficial anthem, it seems, nowadays. All righty, let me pull that up with some volume.